videos for a company called Shabri Building Solutions Limited. I'll never forget the name. This company, it didn't have a massive profile online, but we were able to speak to an ex-employee by searching for them on Facebook. And they told me, this is in Jewwa Market.
They brought us back to the capital, Lilongwe, to an area that's called Njewwa.
But then the next problem is, there are scores of villages across this area.
Hello and welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to Business Point on Global Television. We're live in the nation's capital, Abuja. Our apologies for our delay today. Now, we're talking about inflation. December inflation, Nigeria's inflation rate rose to its highest in more than 27 years. In December, as food prices surged, exacerbating a cost of living crisis and piling more pressure on the central bank to raise interest rates. Now, consumer inflation rose for the 12th straight month in December to 28.92% year-on-year from November's 28.20%, according to reports released by the National Bureau of Statistics. Inflation in Africa's biggest economy and most populous nation has not climbed this high since mid-1996. Food inflation rate, which accounts for the bulk of Nigeria's inflation basket, rose to 33.93% in December from the initial 32.84% a month earlier. The Statistics Office says that prices rose for a broad range of food items, including bread and cereals, oil, fish, meat, fruits, and eggs. The inflation is attributed to high fuel prices and the weakened naira currency. However, NBS said on a year-on-year basis, the headline inflation rate was 7.58% point higher rate recorded in December 2022, which was 21.34%. Now, this shows that the headline inflation rate increased in December 2023 when compared to the same month in the preceding year. However, food prices have been on the rise across Nigeria. The situation deteriorated due to the impact of government policies such as the removal of subsidies and petrol, among others. Analyzing Nigeria's inflation figures is my guest for today, Paul Alaje. He's an economist and an analyst. Many thanks for joining me on the program, sir.
Yeah, thank you so very much for having me.
It's a delight. Now, I know that it's interesting that my question now will be around what you were expecting. Many thought that we saw the figures last year, but we were projecting that this would increase, it would go high, but we didn't see that it would come this high and this soon. So I would want to know, what are your thoughts and what are the factors that are responsible for this increase?
Well, first of all, in our organization, SPM Professionals, we identify that inflation we go to about 27 to 29% by the end of 2023. This was projection available at the beginning of the year 2023 because we thought that some government policy will certainly influence what inflation will be. Apart from what was going on, you recall that Israel-Hamas war had not started in the beginning of the year, but sometime as the year progressed, we now saw that inflation rates are significantly increased. So we saw that increase in inflation. That said, secondarily, we also noticed that the war in Ukraine by Russia has also not reduced significantly. And on, I think, the inauguration day of the President of the Federal Republic, President Bola Tinubu, he made an assertion by saying subsidy is gone. That changed the whole narrative. It changed the narrative of fuel prices. It changed the narrative of quite a number of things. And we saw what the resultant effect has become. Inflation jumps sporadically between June, July, and that has not stopped till we have an all-time high. Till, we have never had inflation this high in the recent democracy since 1999. This is the highest we have had in recent time. What are the factors? I noticed in your report you've mentioned two of the critical factors, even though the factors are far more than those two. First is removal of subsidy, which I just explained. The second one is exchange rate. Naira continues to go weaker. As we speak, it's around 1,300 parallel market. Official rate is over 1,000 naira. What will it be by March? 1,500. Why do we think it will be? Because a spot rate by February or March is expected to go, official window to go about 1,200 thereabout. So if you go of parallel market has refused to converge with official market. But when you study the number very carefully, which I think you also reported, food inflation is above 33%. That means compared to what it was year on year last year, food inflation has now increased by a minimum of 1/3. What does that real driver of inflation is food inflation. So if you're looking at it, why do we have food inflation where if you go to Sokoto State, you see arable land, right and left. If you go to Benue State, the food basket of the nation, from Ohimini to Otukpo to Otupa, leave the Zone C part, then go to Makurdi and different parts of Benue State. Food everywhere. We have fruits rotting on the soil of Benue. Leave Benue, go to Jos. Then you see Irish potato. Leave Jos, go to Kogi State. Then you see cashew nut. Leave Kogi State, go to Osun State. Leave Osun State, go to Anambra State. And go to Maiduguri. Everywhere we have arable land. Why are we not producing? Insecurity. Some of the farmers have been killed on their farms. And even when we have some output, are we able to connect farms to the market? A big issue we're experiencing because of logistic challenges, because of security challenges, because we're also not able to build organized farm and structure our farm. That is why inflation, rather than reducing in Nigeria, is increasing. Why? Broadly speaking, two factors. Exogenous factor and endogenous factor. When you say exogenous factor, they are factors that we cannot control. They are externalities that are happening on us. So you have the war happening, global oil prices, you have the grain deal on the Black Sea, and so many other factors that Nigeria cannot control. But we also have internal factor. Policies of government is one of them. Insecurity is one of them. Logistics, movement of goods from one point to another is another factor. So these factors are humongous. So when all of this happen, how is it affecting that viewer at home? How is it affecting him? How is it affecting her? What is the impact on your income? Let me tell you, the truth is that if you earn the same amount you earned last year, this year, 28% of that money disappeared. And I will explain to you in a proper language. If you earned 100,000 naira last year, and your organization has not made more money, they still make the same amount, so you may not want to blame them, but you are losing approximately 28,900 naira. So what are you living home with? Even though the paycheck still carry 100,000. But in the real sense, what you are going home with is far less than 72,000. So you are going home with 71,100 thereabouts. So inflation is making us poorer. So this is why, some of the reasons why we have had huge inflation. Subsidy removal may not be wrong, but you cannot remove subsidy and devalue at the same time. Those are two policies. When they come, and I mean, it's like touching a live wire, you know, neutral, and another cable that carries electricity. You ask the two to touch one another. What do you expect? There will be a spark. That is why you're having this spark in our economy. And unfortunately, I don't think it will end with December 2023.
That's quite sad, and it's good to know about the figures. Now, you mentioned the government policies. I just want you to, you know, tell us more about these government policies that are actually affecting inflation in the country. Like, just, you know, delve deep into some of these policies. Now,
I mentioned to you of subsidy removal. Yes, it's a government policy. I also mentioned to you about exchange rate. Now, these two policies, I will stay with them. That I'm going to add to them. So when you remove subsidy, what does it mean? It means that, first of all, look at national income function. You have income equals to consumption plus investment plus government expenditure plus the difference between import and export. In all of these, the goal is for you to find what national investment will be. And investment is a function of savings. But don't let us go there. Let us look at the burden of subsidy. Before now, government expenditure, government have been the one subsidizing to induce what GDP growth will be, or the GDP in the country. But government says, I don't want to pay again, I now want to transfer to private firms and individual. So even though the gross domestic product may be the same, but in the real sense of it, government have lifted burden of what is happening in terms of spendings to household and firm. Now, check this. Of the three economic components, who benefited from it? I'll tell you. Before now, what we share at FARC is between 400 billion to 600 billion. Go and check recent FARC figures. It's over 1 trillion. 1.4 to 1.6 trillion. So government is making more money in post-subsidy regime. It's more money. So now, Nigeria, we now need to hope that some of this money coming will be deployed into infrastructure. But I beg to disappoint you, because 20 out of 36 states' budget have been released. 20 of those states have said they are going to spend not less than 75% of their budget on recurrent expenditure. So the question is, where is the dividend of subsidy removal on Nigeria? Maybe a bag of rice that was shared, or trailers trailer bags of rice that were shared by some chief executives. is what people benefit. And I don't know the state you came from. Maybe you have collected your rice, you know, but I can tell you that I have not seen any bag of rice. So, but the question is, can a cup, a module bag of rice take you out of the impact of subsidy? So look at the policy government have made will be, let us make rice available to solve the problem of subsidy removal. I mean, subsidy continue to induce inflation. The price, when it was first announced by NNPC, was 580 to 620 to 640. Today in Abuja, we buy at 650, 660. In some parts of Nigeria, people buy 700. Arguably, some said they are buying 800, 1,000. Post-subsidy removal, at the filling station, people were buying between 189 to 250. Subsidy has been removed. Reality has dawned on household and firms that, hey, you have to pay. And how do you think they will respond? If they could not cope, they will first sack their staff. What will that mean? Let me tell you an implication. When they sack their staff, it means unemployment will grow. When unemployment grows and inflation is growing and stagnation is growing, what do you have? You have stagflation, which is a combination of suffering and inflation. But when you check many Nigerian faces, they are still smiling. That is what, in the word of that popular Afrobeat star, Fela Anikulapo Kuti. He called it suffering and smiling. So inflation is taking away a lot from people. So I don't know if the explanation around subsidy removal, but look at exchange rate. The president that we are going to unify, the goal was that between the parallel market and official rate. Now, when you say we will unify, it must not necessarily be that we will devalue. Unfortunately, what I've seen is that the parallel market have turned itself to a Usain Bolt, continue to speed, you know, faster than any other currency in recent time. Meanwhile, the official rate is playing the catch-up. So, rather than unifying, we see that gap. But you see, many Nigerians, from clothes they wear, to the chain they put on, to the earrings, to the rings, to the bangles, to the shoes, including the hair they have on their head, if it is imported. They have to go to parallel market most of the time to import. So many may wonder, the corn I'm buying on my street is not imported. Why is the price increasing? Inflation. The agbalumo that I buy, the oranges, the mangoes, why is the price increasing? Yeah, those fruits are not imported. They are perhaps produced in one part of Nigeria or the other, but the person selling them is within the economic ecosystem. So he knows that his taxi from the point of sale to his house is going to pay. He knows that when he wants to buy kerosene, to fuel what he will eat, he needs to pay. So he has to increase price too. If not, he will not be able to compete. So when you make one policy, it's like playing snooker. And I don't know if you know about snooker. There is a white ball you want to eat so that you can pot all your ball and predict where the black ball will go to. So, but when you eat the black ball before time, which is what we are seeing, is game over. Not for the opponent, but for the person that potted the black ball. Even if they are potted pocket, it is still a foul. And it's wrong. So, in making economic policy, we need sound economists who would have tested, simulated what the outcome of the economic policy will be. If not, we may have fantastic player, but putting the ball in the wrong pocket.
Thank you very much. Now, like you said, I know you mentioned rice and all of that. Are there products? I would like to know products that are, increasing, goods or products that are actually increasing the rate of inflation in the country.
Well, what is inflation itself? We were talking of general rise in the average price level. It's affecting different things. Tickets, flight ticket was how much before? Its flight ticket was between 50, 60,000. Sometimes ago, we were told it was going to 70,000, 80,000. I'm talking of economy ticket. The business class ticket was never more than 120. Today, you would not see economy less than 90, 100, 120, 150. Business class starting from 200, 250, 300, 500. So the rich also cry. It's affected them. True. So, Gala, I don't know if you have seen that thing we had, 50 naira on the street of Lagos many years back.
Yes.
Today, it's as slim as broom. And I'm wondering, and the price is higher.
Yes.
How about sachet water? The poor also cry. Sachet water, 5 naira. Sachet water today is far more than that. Almost 100% or more. So leave sachet water. What is happening to rice, the staple food in Nigeria?
Exactly.
Beginning of the year, 35,000. Closing the year, 65,000. What happened? Does it mean the grains on our farms have suddenly disappeared? Multiple effects. Insecurity, farmers are being killed on their farms. The reality of economic challenges, the cost of diesel to power the plants, and logistic challenges, what trailers are collecting as cost of mobility. Quite a number of challenges. At the same time, management of organization needs to add more payment to their staff salary. So all of these, guess who we pay? The final consumer. So I can tell you many more products. It's affecting the middle class, who of course consume most of the rice. It's affecting the poor, who take pure water. And the rich are also crying because they are paying a lot for it. So, and for ladies, how is it affecting them? The cost of buying wig has since increased. The cost of painting nails has since increased. The cost of buying everything to make a woman has increased. How about men? If you go to your salon to barb your hair, I tell you, before maybe 1,500, you will not get that anymore, because to power the generator, even if it is small generator that is popularly called I Pass My Neighbor, the cost of powering it, if you give 500 naira, you can't even buy 1 liter of petrol to power it. So it's automatic that you're going to pay more, about 1,500, where you pay 500 in the previous year. So generally speaking, people are paying more for cost of things. So I hope that authorities will look at all of these and do the needful so that the impact of inflation on people will significantly reduce.
Very true. The cost of living has drastically increased. Maybe why, you know, when you mentioned the cost of wigs, weaves and nails, painting nails and all that, maybe why that's why I don't have, you know, I don't have wigs and nails on, because of the cost.
But so, your hearing cost has also increased, by the way. Your shirt has increased. Everything has increased, by the way, including cream has increased in the market.
Actually true. Now let's look at government policies. You know, when you mentioned how government policies are, you know, we know that government policies affect inflation, and then we also know that sometimes government policies might be in a bid to control inflation. Now, like the president, I beg your pardon, the president said it was 2 days ago that in his speech that when a woman is pregnant, it's expected for her to deliver. Now, how long? There are a lot of people that believe that there should be a transition from where we are now to where we're expected to be as regards, you know, the indices. How long do we have to wait?
Two questions you asked.
It could be rhetoric.
Two questions you asked.
Yes.
You asked government policy. The agency of government directly responsible for price stability is the Central Bank of Nigeria. Check. In the last 2 to 3 MPR meeting, was there even a meeting, MPR meeting? And we had MPC meeting, I beg your pardon. Was that even an MPC meeting? So rates remain static, which means technically the authorities at the MPC are sitting on the fence. And that is why I think that government should get those who can dissect these economic indices properly and look first at what is happening in Nigeria, take some clue from what is happening internationally, then come up with robust economic policy that can deliver our people from economic penury, poverty, and deprivation. That said, let's come back to what the president said. He said, when a woman is pregnant after 9 months, is delivered. The same thing in economics. When an economy goes through hardship as a result of policy, it will wait minimum 18 months. So the policy started in June 2023. We need to wait till December 2024. So those hoping that things are going to suddenly turn around in 2024, I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that in economics.
Many thanks, Mr. Alaje. So we'll go on a quick break, and when we return, we'll be... thanks for staying with us on Business Point. And before the break, we were speaking with Mr. Paul Alaje, who is an economist and an analyst. He has been talking about, the implications of the increase in the exchange rate. So I just want to ask you now, we know that inflation happens everywhere in the world. As a matter of fact, now, how does Nigeria's inflation rate compare to other countries or region or even globally?
Well, on the average, UK is doing less than 5%. Quite a number of countries are doing less than 5%. I understand that the war in Ukraine has significantly increased inflation across the globe. But the war is over a year now. So countries are having some sort of retrogression in terms of inflation. Inflation is not progressing as it was before. So there is this reversal in inflation for many countries. But unfortunately, for us, our inflation is still on high. And Nigeria is not the only one having that high inflation. We have Egypt going through very high inflation. We have South Africa with high inflation. We have, what's it called now? Ghana with high inflation as well. So these are three countries I can give you as an example that are going through high inflation. So the question is, why Africa? Why is Africa having very high inflation? Venezuela, non-African countries also having high inflation. Let me tell you, the answer is simple. Countries that hopelessly depend on others for their consumption will always be faced with externality and pressure. Here is it. If you need to depend, for us, we depend on America for everything. We depend on China for everything. We depend on India for everything. Let's start with this. Our school children, they are in school now. Most of our kids are in school. Who clothed them? Which company did those school uniforms come from? Kaduna Textile Mill? Or somewhere in the UK, in the US, in India, or China? So, if there are crises with those factories, what happens to Nigeria? The prices will go up. Exchange rate will be affected. They will start complaining. So, because we don't want to be independent in terms of economy, to a large extent, not permanently, we will be interdependent. But we must look at what we consume the most and produce them locally. That is when we can be free from the current economic crisis. Not just as Nigeria, but as Africa. What is the target of inflation for Nigeria? The Central Bank of Nigeria sent a mark. It's at between 6 to 9%. That's the target for Central Bank. But what do we have? 28. Is that times 2? No. Times 3? No. Times 4? No, for 6%. Maybe for 9%, it's even more than times 3 of what the central bank set as target. By all means, have a single-digit inflation. Across the world, the average inflation is expected to be between 3 to 5%. But Nigeria is a little bit higher, 6 to 9%. But we're not even meeting anyone. So how can we say that all is well when inflation is that high, and we have not seen inflation that high until the time we had the likes of Abacha stove? I don't know if you remember those days where there was economic crisis and people were using Abacha stove. That's the kind of economic experience we have now. But I understand some Gen Zs may not understand what we are talking about here. But it's a major crisis in our hand, and we need to find solution to them.
Now, I want us to look at the effects, the immediate and adverse effect of, this inflation, the inflation rate, especially now in the country.
One is poverty. Inflation is anti-growth. Even though on the 1st of January 2021, if somebody earned 200,000 and inflation is about 25%, mark is more than 25%. By the end of the year, by 2021, the person's income, technically speaking, has reduced to 150. You know why? Inflation has taken 25%. By 2022, inflation takes another 25%. By 2023, it takes another 25% of the remainder. By 2024, 25% gone. So inflation, technically speaking, is making people poorer. When you calculate the nominal number for growth, GDP of a country, if you want to know the real GDP, you have to divide by inflation number. So if you are dividing by inflation number, you had better divide by low number, single digit, than dividing by high number. So when you look at Nigeria, real GDP growth is also low. Why? Because inflation is high. So you see the effect of both on macro and micro. They have both negative impact. And when the impact is that negative, recall that that's not the only challenges Nigeria are faced with. Nigerians are faced with stagnation. People are looking for jobs. companies are folding up. We have seen the departure of some foreign companies, especially in the pharmaceutical in Nigeria. What happens to work out of those, of those companies? So the impact is really negative, tremendous. And we need to do something about it. So when you look at the impact that it's having on our life, for the people, it's throwing them back into poverty. For a nation, it's taking us from middle-income country to low-income country. It's also making people get concerned whether they want to invest in Nigeria. How do you take your money to an economy with 28% inflation? Almost 29, almost 30% inflation. How do you take your currency to such country? So in investing in the country, you are better sit with the authorities to do the right thing and take the right economic decision for growth and for development.
And speaking about doing something about this now, what do you suggest? And then we need to look, I want us to look at policies, what government policies are in place to ensure that, you know, there's a balance or there is a reduction in inflation and all that. And then what do you suggest that we do moving forward?
The good news is that there are solutions. What did we do in the 60s that make Nigeria economy to grow in leap and bounds? We had farm settlements. And this farm settlement was not owned by individuals. My advice is that government should run PPP, public-private partnership, with those who want to invest in agriculture. Because when you check the number, food inflation was very dominant. So what do I mean? Look at somewhere in Benue State, across the 3 zones, create 3 different farm settlements. Look at Kaduna State, places where kidnappers are turned to their homes. Can we snatch it from them and turn it to farms? Organize, what do I mean by all of this? Plantations. Look for what states, local governments have competitive cost advantage over. Then provide farms. We have core members, over 250 of them per time. Can we post them to these farms? There are other unemployed young people. Can we post them to these farms such that on farm we can process, on farm a medical doctor is needed, on farm a broadcaster like you is needed, an economist is needed on farm. We all cannot be doing farm activity from morning till evening. There are other activities that is need for medical center on farms. We will create mini towns, mini cities, grow our economy, improve supply of foods, and even export. Look at Kebbi State with arable land for rice. But imagine if we can organize and ask private sector, some of the organizations that will use the output of this company to organize this farm, while government guarantees security for them, and there is insurance to protect the output. What do you think we have? We're going to see a major fall in food inflation number. What else can we do? Another thing, we hopelessly depend on the rest of the world for finished products. Can we start one after the other supporting, making policy for agro-allied and manufacturing? In places where we use shoes, can we start shoe production center? Look at states with leather, can they partner with states with manpower, with skills? Most of our brothers from the East, they seem to have the competence in terms of selling shoes. Can we create a production center around there? Maybe somewhere in Anambra, maybe somewhere in Enugu. Can we also protect them so that sit at home on Monday we hate? These are policies government must come. And you know what? The policies I mentioned to you, you cannot enact them with babariga. You have to throw your babariga away. You have to roll your sleeve. So when you focus on production, you focus on plantation, then you are going to see output. Because at the end of the day, first of demand and supply will interplay. It is the supply you have that can help you combat the growing demand, because whether you like it or not, population growth rate is over 2%, 2.6, 2.7%, about 3%. Compare that with the growth that we have, which means we are not growing in the real sense in terms of economy. So you need to put all of this together to have significant economic growth and see your people come out of poverty. The numbers are not so good. 133 million people, as at the last count, by the Bureau of Statistics and UNDP. People not just living in poverty, people living in multi-dimensional poverty.
That's sad. Many thanks, Mr. Paul Alhaji. We've been taking Mr. Paul Alhaji, and he has just taken us through, you know, an array of some of the implications of inflation in the country. We'll take a quick break, and when we return, we'll look at the implications of multinational companies leaving the country. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, in a move signaling a shift away from onshore oil production, energy giant Shell has agreed to sell its Nigerian onshore oil and gas assets for a total of $2.4 billion. Now, let's not even go down into this. Shell has agreed to leave Nigeria. Shell obviously is leaving Nigeria after over 88, almost 90 years in Nigeria. What are the implications of this for Nigeria, owing to the fact that we see that this company has been involved in a lot of NSIP programs and, you know, some of its contributions to Nigeria's economy? What are the implications now that this company would be leaving?
Well, we need to understand the dynamics of energy. I will start with that. Before now, the first form of energy was firewood. Then they moved to coal. It doesn't mean that firewood finished in the old world. People were still using firewood. But it has moved to coal, so people started using coal. Then there was another movement from coal to black oil, to petroleum, PMS, and so on and so forth as technology advances. And we are still there, you know, to gas. So it moved from diesel or black oil to gas. Does it mean that diesel finished? Does it mean that gas now? There's another energy around the world to move from those to biogas and to renewable energy. The truth is, when you look at what Total wrote, it used to be Total. Now it changed to Total Energy. Shell understands that there is an agenda in the world to abandon black oil. It does not mean it will finish. It does not mean, like I've heard argument, Nigeria will finish in so year. I don't think so. I don't think those arguments are correct. So I've just built that background to let you know that even when oil does not finish, there will be electric cars, which you have seen now. Some of them are now here with us in Nigeria. Many people will abandon those traditional things that make them consume those kind of energy to modern ones. So the question is, Shell is leaving Nigeria, one, because of the nature of our economy, because of scarcity of FX, because of a number of challenges. We have communities disturbing and looking for money. We have seen PIA and quite a number of policies that government have made. Have they worked optimally? The answer is no. Is government trying? Yes, the answer is correct. Government is trying. But when you look at a company like Shell that stayed that long with us, there are a number of factors why they want to leave. So I hope the new buyers will take into consideration all of these so that they don't face similar challenges that Shell over the years has faced in Nigeria. But Shell is not the only one going. There are quite a number of, multiple
national companies,
chain stores that have also left. So why are they leaving Nigeria? We have seen companies in pharmaceutical that have also taken their departure from Nigeria. Why are they leaving? Purchasing power parity. You don't go to a place where people don't have capacity to pay. If not, you will have supply, but your supply will not translate to demand. Not because your product don't look beautiful, but because the cost of production is so high and people's capacity to pay is very low. What will happen? You may not cover certain sales level you need to cover so that you can cover what we call your average variable cost. If you don't cover your average variable cost, it's a short-term point. The business will fold up. So Shell is going, some have left, some are trying to leave because Nigeria is not attracting. You know, the economic environment is not robust enough. And when we say government should work on this economy, what are we saying? Create more opportunity. Let more private sector come. Let more private sector be stabilized, because I know government cannot employ anybody. It is when you have robust private sector that is independent, that is strong, with good policy environment, making them thrive, they will now employ people. The people will stabilize their families. There will be growth, there will be prosperity. This is how economy works. But unfortunately, we are still hoping that one day we will get to that point.
Indeed, one day we'll get to that point. Many thanks, Mr. Laje. You've spoken extensively on this topic, and we're really glad. Such a delight to have you join us.
Thank you so very much.
And hopefully we'll hope to see you some more time.
Hopefully.
Thank you. So we'll be speaking with Paul Alaje, who is an economist and an analyst. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll take an insight into some of our news. Please stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, here are some of the news that made the rounds over the week. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has interrogated the Accountant General of the Federation, Oluwatoyin Madenyi, over her alleged role in a 585.2 million naira fraud involving the recently suspended Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Dr. Betta Edu. Madenyi, the custodian of Nigeria's purse strings, faced intense questioning over 6 hours at the EFCC headquarters on Monday. While she was released without formal charges, the interrogation highlights the deepening probe into alleged financial malfeasance at the heart of the government. Leaked documents suggest Edu orchestrated the unauthorized transfer of 585.2 million naira from the National Social Investment Program NSIP account to the personal account of a ministry. Madenyi, however, vehemently denied approving the controversial memo stating that budgetary allocations are disbursed directly to self-accounting agencies entrusted with project implementation and payment. Edu, who underwent a 10-hour grilling session by the EFCC last week, was eventually suspended by President Bola Tinubu on January 8. This followed earlier reports outlining the irregular transfer of humanitarian funds into a private sector. Now, Shell, the decision by Shell, a global energy giant, to exit its onshore business in Nigeria, has sent shockwaves through the country's oil and gas industry, casting a spotlight on local firms and raising questions about the future of the industry. On Tuesday, Shell announced that it had agreed to sell its Nigerian onshore subsidiary for up to $2.4 billion, making good on a promise to exit what was for decades one of its most dependable cash cows in Nigeria, but in recent years has become a big drag on its reputation. Shell will sell the Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria Limited, SPDC, for a consideration of $1.3 billion. It is said in a statement, adding that the buyers will make an additional payment of up to $1.1 billion relating to prior receivables at completion. Findings show that SPDC operates and has a 30% stake in the SPDC joint venture that holds 18 onshore and shallow water mining leases. Shell's resources in SPDC reached around 458 million barrels of oil equivalent by the end of 2022. Now, moving on, Nigeria's currency fell to a record low in the parallel market on Tuesday due to persistent dollar shortages and increased demand for the greenback. The unit declined 1.5% to 1,305 naira per dollar compared with a day earlier. According to Abubakar Mohammed, now the Chief Executive Officer of Forward Marketing Bureau, The Change Limited, which compiles data on the informal market in Lagos. That led the gap over the official rate, which closed at 838 naira on Monday, to widen to 36%, according to FMDQ, which tracks exchange rate for the West African nation. Now, dollar demand has risen steadily since the start of January from businesses that went to restock goods on their raw materials, as well as individuals needing dollar for studies abroad. Now, in all of this, we find that Africa's most populous nation is facing acute foreign currency shortages despite efforts by authorities to improve supply. Now, President Bola Tinubu introduced foreign currency reforms in June, contributing to the naira depreciating by about 50% against the dollar last year and causing many of Nigeria's biggest companies to declare losses after revaluing overseas loans and letters of credit using the weaker exchange rate. And that's it on the news that made the rounds this week. Many thanks for joining us on Business News. And it came to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. Don't forget, we're on Star Times, channel 276. Kindly follow us across all social media platforms using @Global TV NG and other handles now showing on your screen. My name is Queen Agaba. Thank you for watching and see you again. Now showing on your screen. My name is Queen Agaba. Thank you for watching and see you again.